Why order is built on fear, and why it still governs us. Leviathan, the price of peace.
All right, today we are diving into one of the heavy hitters of political philosophy, Thomas Hobbes's Leviathan. Now, this book was written way back in 1651, right in the middle of the chaos of the English Civil War, and it tackles this massive question: what holds society together? And more importantly, what's the real price we have to pay for peace? To get to the bottom of it, Hobbes kicks things off with a really chilling thought experiment. So Hobbes asks us to do something kind of radical. He wants you to imagine what he calls the state of nature. I mean, try to forget everything. No government, no police, no laws, just people. In their raw, completely unfiltered state. What do you think life would actually be like? And you have to remember, for Hobbes, this wasn't just some abstract philosophical game. He was literally watching his own country tear itself apart. He saw a functioning society, what he called a commonwealth, as a living, breathing body. Harmony? That's health. Disagreements and sedition? That's the sickness setting in. And a full-blown civil war? Well, for him, that was death. The actual death of society itself. The stakes were for him as high as they could possibly get. So, if society is on its deathbed, how do you save it? Hobbes' answer was, well, it was pretty out there. He basically said, we have to build an artificial man, a giant, powerful entity he called the Leviathan. This is the Commonwealth, the state, and its one and only job to protect us from ourselves. And he doesn't just mean this as a pretty metaphor. He gets super specific with it. Think about it. The sovereign, the ultimate ruler, is the soul that gives the whole thing life. The judges and officers, they're the joints, allowing it to move. Rewards and punishments, those are the nerves, sending signals for what to do and what to avoid. The wealth of the people is its strength. And like we just said, civil war, that's the end of the line, death. Okay, but why do we need this giant artificial person protecting us? To get that, we have to go deeper and look at Hobbes' diagnosis of the real problem, us, human nature. For Hobbes, a person is basically just a very complex machine, an automaton made of flesh and blood. And here's the key. If you can figure out how that machine works, you can predict exactly what it's going to do. And what it's going to do if you just leave it to its own devices, well, it's a total disaster. So let's break down the human machine. It all starts with one thing: sense. Hobbes argues that every single thought you've ever had, everything in your mind, started as a physical thing in the outside world pressing on you. You see something, you hear something, you touch something. That creates a motion, a little vibration that travels through your nerves to your brain. That's it. That's the raw data being fed into the system. So in that sense, then what's something like imagination or memory? Well, for Hobbes, it's just what he calls decaying sense. It's a fading echo. Think about throwing a rock into a pond. The splash is the sense, right? The ripples that keep going after, getting fainter and fainter, that's imagination. It's just the leftover motion, the ghost of the original sensation. So you can see the big difference here, right? Sense is what's happening right now. It's vivid, it's present. Imagination is the fading relic of that. It's the ghost in the machine. And for Hobbes, this applies to everything inside your head. Your memories, your daydreams, even your dreams at night. They're all just echoes of stuff you've physically sensed before. Okay, so if our minds are just a bunch of fading sensations, where does something like reason fit in? This is a huge point for Hobbes. Reason is not some kind of divine spark or an internal moral compass. Nope. For Hobbes, reason is just a calculator. It's for reckoning, adding and subtracting consequences. It doesn't tell you what's right or wrong. It just tells you the most efficient way to get what you already want. So what do we want? If reason is the calculator, what's powering the whole thing? Well, Hobbes says it's our passions, our desires. That's the engine driving the human machine. We are just creatures of endless appetite and aversion, constantly moving towards stuff we want and running away from stuff we hate. And this is probably one of the most radical and unsettling ideas in the entire book. Hobbes says there's no such thing as universal good or evil. Seriously, those are just words we use. They're labels we stick on our own personal desires. Whatever I want, I call good. Whatever you hate, you call evil. So what happens when we both want the same thing and we both call it good? Yeah, that's when things get ugly. And this mechanical view, it applies to everything, even our emotions. Hobbes literally breaks them down like they're math problems. What's hope? It's just your appetite for something plus the opinion you can get it. What's fear? It's your aversion to something plus the opinion it's going to hurt you. Even something as profound as your will is just the last appetite you feel before you decide to act. It's all just a machine doing its thing. So, let's put it all together. What happens when you get a whole bunch of these human machines, each one a selfish, calculating creature driven by its own private desires, with no shared idea of what's good or evil, and you throw them all together in a world where there isn't enough to go around? For Hobbes, the outcome isn't just a possibility, it's a mechanical certainty. You get a crisis, you get war. And the logic is cold, hard, and brutal. Step 1, we're all more or less equal. Yeah, some are stronger, some are smarter, but at the end of the day, anyone can kill anyone else. Step 2, we all want power, not for its own sake, but to make sure we can get what we want in the future. And this, Hobbes says, leads to 3 key drivers of conflict. Competition, because we want the same stuff. Distrust, because we can't be sure you won't try to take our stuff. And glory, because we want a reputation that makes people leave us alone. The final, inevitable result? A state of perpetual war. And this brings us to what is, without a doubt, Hobbes's most famous and chilling line. In this war of all against all, there's no room for anything that makes life worthwhile. No industry, no art, no culture, no society. You can't trust anyone. Your life is just a constant battle for survival. And in his words, the life of man is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. So, how on earth do you escape a nightmare like that? Well, this is where our old friend reason makes a comeback. That cold, calculating part of us, it's our only way out. The very same selfish logic that gets us into this mess is what shows us the way out. Reason makes it painfully obvious that this constant war is a terrible deal for everyone, and points to the only possible solution. We have to make a deal, a social contract. And here's the 4-step plan. Step 1, our reason tells us we have to seek peace if we want to survive. Step 2, to get that peace, we all have to agree to a contract. In this deal, everyone gives up their natural right to do absolutely anything they want. Step 3, and this is the big one, we don't just give up that power, we transfer it. We hand over all our collective strength to one single authority, a sovereign. And step 4, that united power becomes the Commonwealth, the great Leviathan, whose one and only job is to enforce the contract and keep the peace, using whatever force is necessary. But of course, this escape from chaos, this peace, it isn't free. Not by a long shot. Hobbes is crystal clear that to create this Leviathan, we all have to make a massive trade-off. There is a price of peace, and every single one of us has to pay it. And the choice is about as stark as it gets. On the one hand, you have the state of nature. There, you have absolute, total freedom to do whatever you want. But you live in constant, paralyzing fear. On the other hand, you have the Commonwealth. There, you get security. You get safety. You get the possibility of a decent life. But you have to give up that absolute freedom and agree to live by the rules of the sovereign. And this brings us right back to a question that's just as relevant today as it was in the 1600s. I mean, this isn't just some dusty old philosophical debate, right? We argue about this every single day when we talk about laws, government power, privacy, and personal freedom. So Hobbes's core question is still staring us right in the face. Where do you draw the line? How much freedom are you personally willing to trade for security?